So that place definitely attracts a lot of dough. Is it a bar, a restaurant, everything?
It's a really big bar. Some of these used to be separate buildings, and they just joined them together. For instance, that place was two with a shared backyard, and now it is just one big bar with separate individual bars, some upstairs, two downstairs, and then the patio in the back that also serve.
Is that the last one?
Which one? Oh, I see another car down there.
Oh, yes. I bet the next few days they're all going to be gathered around the station, like all slumped over like a laptop screen or two, and they'll be like, "Oh, Tony, there's your car!" All sorts of stupid shit like that.
I know, so you got some cops gotta laugh and shit like, "I'm on YouTube."
Some of them would probably get angry about it. Some of them would probably be like, "Oh, that's cool." I don't know. I'd like to think some of them would like it, but.
Some officers got a real sense of humor. Oh, this is right by that precinct up there. That station?
Yeah. Hey, there's somebody.
So you want me to put the camera up, try and give them a little chat?
Yeah, we can just both go to the passenger window, see if we can ask them some questions.
What did you want to ask?
If the cameras have made a difference in crime fighting.
Oh. Excuse me, officer.
Hey.
We were just wondering. My name's George.
Hey, and I'm Garrett. I'm visiting from out of town.
Nice to meet you. We were just wondering, have cameras help decrease crime in New Orleans?
Or been used like to solve crimes that otherwise wouldn't have been solved?
What kind of cameras are you talking about?
Police dash cams, also street cameras that have been put up by NOPD.
Well, we haven't put up any cameras.
Who's putting those? Are those just traffic cameras put up by the Department of the Streets or whatever?
Which ones you're referring to?
Just all over the city. I see them on all the major intersections. The major camera.
Oh, no, that's just the city.
That's just the city doing that. And who's reviewing the footage? Is that to help fight terrorism, or
is the NSA getting it directly, or I think New Orleans PD should be?
Because it's a traffic violation, it has to be reviewed by a law enforcement officer before it can say yes or no, this was violated.
So the cameras are used in court for both sides, for the accused and the accusers?
That I couldn't answer.
Okay.
I'm not familiar.
That's understandable.
But I do know that one of us has to review it before it can even go to the next step.
Okay. And did you receive a memo about cop block coming to New Orleans? Okay. Didn't know if some of the other officers had mentioned that they received a memo about a group coming down. It's just videotaping police for accountability on both sides. It's just a third party. You ever heard anything?
Not really, no.
Well,
I have a question about different uniform colors. I noticed some uniforms are light blue. Yours is like a darker, or is that just like a jacket?
This is a jacket.
Oh, okay, cool.
They did switch away from the dark blue, right? Because it was so hot.
Well, that was just
Or were those black they were wearing?
they were black, but they were technically called navy blue. That was strictly after Katrina.
And they were using the black as kind of military code enforcement, trying to... No?
We made a uniform switch because so many officers lost this uniform in the storm. Cleaners were booted and whatever, so they just made a complete change.
Oh, I was just curious as to why they chose such a darker color since it's so hot down here. And you've seen across the country cops wearing...
That was a decision that was made by somebody that makes a lot more money than them.
Yeah.
So
Well, I know it's unfortunate they have you guys doing all the dirty work, while I'm sure your union boss screws you over a fair bit. Orleans got one of the best unions for police.
Oh, there's the police association.
I don't know who told you we have.
Maybe I'm thinking of all the sheriff's associations.
Well, there's a difference between an association and a union.
When it comes to the paperwork, there's not much.
If an association does not have negotiating power, collective bargaining, they have no power.
So who are you guys represented when you get investigated by IA?
If you're not a member of the association, you have to get a lawyer.
So the association replaced y'all's union?
Or it's almost like an insurance, or...
Well, but even if you're a member of the association, you don't necessarily have access to an attorney.
Okay.
You have to pay for that.
Y'all still required to pay dues?
If you're a member of the association,
Okay.
You're not required to.
But to be a part of it, you got to pay into
I
it.
mean, it's just like being
Yeah. Well, at least they're not forcing everybody into it. And have you ever heard about oath keepers, officer? Oath keepers?
never.
I have to ask you a question. Do you uphold your oath to the Constitution seriously? Or do you think it's just a piece of paper that bureaucrats get to manipulate?
With the Constitution,
Yes.
I'm going to put it to you like this. Every officer that goes to any police academy, any police the Fourth Amendment is one thing that you concentrate on more than anything.
The fourth?
The Fourth Amendment.
I thought it's the second. The second backs them all up.
Well, the fourth is
Amendment is the basis of anything lawful.
Doesn't that also pertain to the quartering of soldiers in a home?
that's the third.
The Fourth Amendment is search and seizure.
So, oh, search, yeah. That's right, yeah. Well, I fucking idiot. Wait, you think it's alright for people to document?
Fuck them pigs, bro. Break the fucking window.
I mean, I think what you're,
Thank you for handling that so well, sir.
well, what you're doing with the filming and all of that actually falls under the First Amendment.
Freedom of speech, freedom of the press.
Freedom of speech. That all falls under the First Amendment. The Second Amendment, pretty much, that's when the right to bear arms and whatever.
When they infringe upon the first, it's time to defend the second. So you believe in the basic human rights of individuals and...
I'm born and raised in the United States.
Right, well,
And the thing, I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of people with cameras, and I'm going to tell you this honestly, y'all show up after the fact. 9 times out of 10, y'all did not see what happened 5 seconds or even 1 second prior to you turning that camera on. 99.9% of police officers want to go about their shift without any kind of wrong.
I wouldn't go that high.
Somebody does something to attract our attention. And believe me, whenever we take any kind of enforcement action, we expect the cameras to come on. But like I said, the cameras come on 5 seconds after the initial incident.
Unless it's already recording before it happens. And that's a chance, it's a crapshoot.
That's a chance. But like I said, most people that are walking around with a camera like you are, you show up after and you don't see what transpired prior to it.
I can understand if you come across a stop and after someone's been speeding, you're too late, you don't know what's happened, you don't know if the guy's any warrants out for his arrest. But if you see police approaching people...
Well, but even then, you're working on an assumption.
But isn't the officer as well for approaching someone?
You don't know what we know. You know, we may be looking for a particular description of a perpetrator. We're tied to this radio. We hear stuff that happens all over the city. So say they put out a armed robbery suspect of a subject wearing a greenish jacket with a hat pulled down over his head. White male, mustache and beard. kind of describes you, doesn't it?
I think it does.
So even though it
Yeah.
might not necessarily be you, you fit the description.
Now, would y'all approach me, or would you just ask me questions? Because there's between answering a few questions and being detained and handcuffed.
Well, but that's the thing. I've got reasonable suspicion to stop you and ask you who you are, where you've been, what you're doing, based upon the fact that you fit the description of what I heard was broadcast on a previous crime. You might not know that. You're not.
But I can ask you why I'm being stopped, correct?
Absolutely, you can.
And you can say
But-
you got
but-
APP
but
on.
This is the thing. Based upon officer safety, we don't necessarily want to show our whole hand, because if you are that subject and you are an armed robbery person, chances are you carried a gun. So we don't want to show everything to you up front until we can ascertain if the situation is safe for everybody. Because we don't want to get into a run and gun battle.
Right. Crowded area.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the best advice I tell people is, if you did nothing wrong, just cooperate.
But does that mean
we're not gonna
subduing and to all searches and seizures? Does that mean subduing, being like detained in the back of a police car and having you run background checks? Or if we cooperate, just say, yes, hi, my name's, George Poir, it's nice to meet you. Can I help you with anything? Are you guys still going to detain me and put me in the back of the car?
until we figure out what's going on, you will be detained. But at the end of it, you're going to go on about your business and pat you on the back and say, have a nice day, sorry for the inconvenience.
And well, it's nice to hear an apology coming from an officer.
And it happens. I can tell you it happens more times than you can possibly imagine.
I guess that happens a good bit down here.
I've had that exact thing happen to me in Sarasota, Florida when I was attending school. I was on campus and there was nobody else around, and supposedly there was a robbery next door at a hotel, and they just came in with police and dogs, and at least they didn't rough me up or anything, but I did spend an hour in custody because they interrogated me over a pipe that was found in the area. So,
Well, campus police, that gets a little bit,
That goes to more university policy.
it is,
it was actually the sheriff's department that was doing it, but
but the problem is the campus. They just kind of, that still confuses me sometimes, so.
It doesn't seem like the higher ups are too fair to you guys and don't give y'all all the information.
No, they give us what we need. They really do. I mean, there's not a lot of variation of policing from place to place. I mean, it's pretty standard all the way around.
I don't know, New York's got that stop and frisk. A lot of the other smaller towns are buying mine-resistant vehicles.
The thing with the stop and frisk, it's a two-way street. It really is. If you just, there's always been the Fourth Amendment, again, back to it. You can't just randomly stop somebody or whatever.
But that's what they were doing up there. What would you classify as a reasonable suspicion for a stop and frisk procedure? From a law enforcement officer, what do you think would be the most responsible and professional thing to do? To lead by example.
You have, first of all, you have to have a reasonable suspicion as to what you have to actually be able to articulate that somebody is going to commit a crime or has committed a crime. And each situation is different, and each officer is going to view it differently.
Right.
I mean, you could have two officers sit there and view the exact same situation, and when you ask them about it, you might not get the exact same verbiage about it.
I've seen one officer try to stop another from beating someone.
Well, that's completely different.
It's just the different people.
But you're not even talking about the same thing. We just went from reasonable suspicion.
I'm talking about the difference of the officers.
Well, but what I'm saying, you asked me about the reasonable suspicion stop and frisk. You kind of came into something. But it's human nature. You two could look at something and then write it down in an essay, and it's not going to exactly match. Simply because how you perceive things is different than how he's going to perceive things. It's just human nature. That's just how that is. So one officer might look at something and perceive it as a threat, whereas I might not necessarily perceive it as a threat.
So it's up to the officer's discretion.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, one thing I think about stop and frisk in New York is that they're deeming zones places where there's high crime and that they can just stop people if they match.
But here's the thing though, if you have a high crime area, you are going to have a description of who's committing that crime in said area, correct?
Possibly,
So,
depending on how specific the enforcement is.
but that's what I'm saying. If you have an area where you have a lot of armed robbers and the particular description of perpetrator is X, you're not going to necessarily stop Y. You follow what I'm saying? It's kind of hard for people not in law enforcement to understand that, but the people that are committing crimes are
Repeat offenders.
right. They're not going to change their spots, and if you know that a particular element is doing your crime, why not be a little proactive to kind of stop it for everybody else?
Well, one thing that creates, I think, is the possibility there's a profile of a criminal,
Well,
and what it becomes is just
the
young
thing
males
is,
of a certain
it depends on
demographic.
What's your profile? Are you racially profiled?
Wait for the camera.
Or are you criminally profiled? I mean, if your criminal meets a certain criteria, and you know it based upon previous reports and whatever, are you necessarily profiled if you're criminally profiled?
I guess it depends on how it comes down to the individual enforcement level.
Right, I mean, it's
All
just,
cops are human beings. They each have their own thought process.
well, and by the same token, they're human beings, they also make mistakes.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, when we make a mistake, oh my God, everybody wants to hang us by toes.
Well, because so many people see cops getting off with a slap on the wrist. I've seen cops accused of rape, and they
Well,
just.
but here's the thing. Just because you're accused does not mean you're guilty.
But when you have a watchdog agency investigating itself,
No, but what I'm saying is, even us, we're innocent until proven guilty.
right.
But the minute one of us is accused of anything, what's the first thing you see? Go to Yahoo Shine and you start looking at the comments. What do you read?
Don't bother the comments. I mean, that's why
But-
video cameras are
That's what
important
I'm
for
saying.
transparency.
What I'm saying is, everybody wants to bash police.
Not all police. There are good officers like yourself. You seem to be like an upstanding.
Well, but
Peace
what I'm
officer.
saying, it's when every time you turn around, you get your teeth kicked in, you kind of get disgruntled, and that might not be the best choice of word there. Callous would be better.
Okay.
And you kind of just, you don't have that compassion side anymore. You just strictly by the book. This is how it's going to be. That's it.
Would you say that's a problem for cops to dehumanize themselves being on the force so much
Well,
and
if
just
you
losing
saw-
that
if you
interaction with
saw
people?
what we saw
I know y'all
every
see some
day
shit.
out, it's kind of hard to not dehumanize.
My uncle was almost sheriff in Florida, and he declined the opportunity because it was so corrupt.
Well, it's not corrupt. What I'm saying is, we see the worst of everybody and everything. And if you don't dehumanize yourself to an extent, there's no way that you can survive in the world. You would just go sit and curl up in the corner and suck your thumb.
Well, you can get used to it, but you don't have to lose your humanity over it.
Well, I think one of the
I see, you're speaking as a person from the outside looking in.
I've seen both sides. I try to walk the tightrope.
Now, have you ever worn a badge? Have you
No,
ever done
but-
the job?
I'm sorry?
Have you ever done the job?
No, but I have
you
been. I have had police wait 2 hours to respond to something. They didn't
But
come.
no, that's not what I'm saying. Listen to what I'm saying. Until you deal with it from our side of it and see what we see day in, day out, day in and day out, relate to. You can say that you can understand, and you say that, oh, I walk around, I film this, and I see this, or whatever. It's not the same.
It's
not.
I've grew up to see my entire life. My whole family has. I know the type of people you have to deal with on a regular basis, and I understand that completely. I'm just concerned about. Do you remember what the police department was like before Katrina? How much money was being lost? How many corrupt cops there were? Just lone wolves looking after themselves. We lost about, what? Not even the ones looting that were going on during that time.
How long you been there?
It was very nice of you, sir. Cool.
What you saw on the camera did not represent the truth. There's a lot of things.
I saw cops stealing speakers when it was flooded. Were they stealing it from other people to not steal it? I'll listen. I'm sorry. I'll listen.
I was here during
I was as well.
and what we took, or what people took, was out of necessity to just get through.
Not on Canal Street. I saw the stores being looted with all the TVs and all that.
I guarantee you did not see police looting on Canal Street. I guarantee you.
I've seen video footage of cops going to a store and coming out with a grocery bag full of electronics. Not food and everything.
You know what? I was here. In fact, I was stationed on Canal Street. So what you say you saw, we're gonna agree to disagree.
Well, it was on the local news when it happened.
And like I said, I've never seen that.